the passion of wildlife photography.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I have a question. What was the first image that you took that you loved? Maybe it was a high moment in your life where you climbed the top of a mountain or achieved a goal of yours. Maybe it was something you love, nature, the ocean, the cosmos. Maybe it was of somebody you love, somebody you want to keep forever, somebody you cherish. Growing up, I was very close to my grandfather, and when I was 16, he passed away. He left me two things. He left me his Georgia Tech class ring, and he left me his camera gear. The Georgia Tech class ring made a lot of sense to me. I was a nerd. I was a mathlete. I wanted to go to school for engineering. The camera gear at the time did not make a lot of sense to me, but it was very special to him, so it became very special to me. I did follow in his footsteps, and I went to Georgia Tech for electrical engineering, but during that time, the most unexpected thing happened. And it wasn't engineering that led my path, but it was that camera. You see, me being a shy, nerdy kid, when I got to college, I was so scared. I was scared of being at parties, and there were all these people, and that camera gave me a purpose. It gave me something I could hide behind, and I could go to these parties. I could be on the field when Joe Hamilton was scoring his touchdowns. I could be at the foot of the stage when Nikon was performing. I could be the center of everything Georgia Tech, and I had something to hide my social awkwardness behind, which was that beautiful camera. It was great because me being so shy, this camera gave me a voice, and it gave me a tool to say and show what I was passionate about without saying a word. I left Georgia Tech after 3 years, moved to Australia to get a fine arts degree, and I got a fine arts degree with a concentration in photo media. One of my first passions was the underwater world. My dad used to take me on these dive trips. We would go to Florida or the Caribbean, and I would see these amazing things that I wanted to keep forever. So I had to get a camera that I could take underwater and start capturing the things I was seeing. So I got this guy, the Nikon 5, my first underwater camera. This guy was so beautiful, I could finally photograph underwater, but it came with so many challenges. First off, being underwater, you don't know how far away you are from things because of the magnification of the water. So I had a string I'd put inside my vest, and it had knots in it for every feet, and I'd have to measure my distance to the subject. This is a fully manual camera with the exception of a light meter. So not only that, but I had to find out what the center gray was and dial it. And when you dial your aperture, you can actually see it moving in and out. So beautiful. One of the biggest challenges, though, this camera's film. Back in the day when I got this camera, the late 90s, there was no digital underwater. So you had 36 exposures on a dive, and that was it. 36 frames, and that was it. But I was excited because I could finally take photos underwater. And I remember taking the first photograph I ever loved, which was this image. I was on a boat in Cairns off the Great Barrier Reef, and you hear all this noise, and I was about to go diving with sharks. I was really scared, and you get your BCD on, you get all your tank ready, you get in the water, and you sound like Darth Vader when you're breathing, you know? And I was terrified. And I went underwater, and I looked up, and what I saw wasn't scary at all. What I saw was this simplicity and this beauty and this grace. I was expecting fear, and what I saw was simplicity. So I took this image, and it was the first photo that I loved. One of my photography teachers said, you want to know how an image is good or not? You put it on your wall, and you see how long it lasts there. I put this image on my wall in 2001, and it is still there. I actually got a graphic designer, and I'm like, can you make a logo out of this image? And he did. And I love it because every time I look at it, I'm reminded of the first photograph that I ever loved. Going from engineering to fine arts was a massive challenge for me. I showed up and I'm like, all right, you guys tell me what you wanted me to do and I'll do it. Go out and give yourself an assignment. Go out there and take some photos and bring them back. Like, no, just give me a problem and I'll solve it. It's not really how it works, right? You want to hear something funny? My highest grade in fine arts was lower than my lowest grade in engineering. I struggled. I remember getting a call from my parents. They're like, what is going on with you? Your grades are horrible. I had high honors in electrical engineering as well as a scholarship, so I wasn't really sure how to think like an artist. And it was definitely a massive transition for me. So I went into the dictionary. Well, what is art? What are these guys talking about, right? It is work produced by creative skill and imagination, is what Oxford said. You can go around and find a million different definitions of what the word art is. For me, what makes something art is when you can put yourself, what you feel, when you can put your heart into your work and project that onto the viewers. When I take a photograph, I now ask myself 3 questions. What do I see? What do I feel? And what can I eliminate? The what do I see? What is your subject? Are you photographing your kid playing a soccer game? Are you photographing your dog? Are you photographing sharks? That's the hero of your shots. What do I feel? Do you feel terror? Do you feel simplicity? How do you portray that? For me with the sharks, it was by making a simple silhouette. If there's chaos in the scene, maybe it's slowing your shutters or show all the movement. What do I feel? What can I eliminate? How many of you guys have had a shot that you love? Maybe your kid's scoring a goal and you've got that bored parent on the side checking out their cell phone. You're like, why is that person in my shot? So I let my eyes do a little wander around the frame, and I talk and I look to see what I can eliminate from that frame, because everything that is in that frame will be there forever. I remember the first day my fine arts degree made sense to me, and I started getting really excited. My teacher started talking about mathematics in art. It's like, yeah, I can do math. Not only did I letter in varsity math team, but I got the award for most spirited math team member. I had to get up in assembly in front of 450 people, and they're like, most spirited varsity math team member, Kristi Odom. People were laughing, and I was mortified, and I walked up in front of everyone to receive this award. It's horrific. But you know what? I love mathematics. And I started to realize how much math is part of photography and part of art. Have you ever looked at a photograph or a painting and noticed that your eyes just stay in the frame? They go from one subject to the other. If you look at a masterpiece, you will notice your eyes get trapped. People use geometry for this. How cool is that, geometry? So I started realizing I could use this in my own work. I could use lines to draw people from one subject to the next. This was the arm of the mother with the child in the middle, and then the arm encasing him. Used triangles, triangular composition. More orangutan shots, this time in Sumatra. But when I let my eyes wander, I go from the top of the head to the arm to the baby the mother's embracing. The story comes from the geometric eye movement. Sometimes people trap people and trap their eyes on their images by using circles. Sometimes there's a lot of circles. This is where I really got to nerd out, is when I finally realized that people use the Fibonacci sequence in art. Do you guys know the Fibonacci sequence? It's one of the most famous mathematical sequences. This is where 2 numbers equal the next number. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 24. 21, sorry, 34. But this sequence is found everywhere, and it's found in art. You take these numbers and you make squares out of the sides of the numbers and draw an arch through it, you get what's called the golden ratio. This golden ratio, if you ever look at Starry Night in a museum, you will notice your eyes go this way. If you look at the Mona Lisa, your eyes spiral down in a Fibonacci spiral in a golden perfect ratio. If you look at the girl with the pearl earring, you will notice that your eyes move in this fashion. And that, to me, got me really excited. This sequence is seen everywhere, from seashells to this vegetable I can't pronounce, but it's very tasty, to the cosmos. It's everywhere, and people are using it in art. So I started to realize I could use that in my own work to trap my viewers. Sometimes it's super easy, and it's just seen in nature, like the trunk of this elephant. Your eye goes down in this Fibonacci spiral. Sometimes you can use light and limbs to draw people in. Fibonacci spiral. This is such a popular eye movement, it's even an overlay in Lightroom. So you can go into Lightroom and check to see the eye movement you're producing with your images. So one of the things that I really wanted, I love nature, and I love wildlife. It is my biggest passion. And I want to use my work to get people to connect, to get people to want to give back, to get people to want to conserve this beautiful world. So I started to think, how can I do that? Well, what makes a powerful image, right? People connect, or I connect, when I can feel emotional about something. When I see joy in somebody I care about. When I see horror is when I know something needs to be done. So I wanted to shoot wildlife in as much of an emotional way as possible. But here's the question: how do you shoot animals that have no tears and have no facial expressions and have no smiles? How do you shoot animals for emotion? So I went back to the lovely dictionary, what is emotion? And I love this Webster definition. Webster says in there that it's a reaction, and at the end it says, a lot of times it's accompanied by behavioral changes in the body. If you think about it, how much of our communication is in body language? I've seen studies that say 70% is in body language. I've seen studies that say only 7% is what we say. You can tell if somebody's confident. You can tell if somebody's depressed and bored. You can tell if somebody's just not into you without them having to say a word. More and more I photograph animals, the more I see emotions in maybe a non-traditional way. There's emotions all over my dog, my Choco. She gets super happy. She gets super sad. She'll give me sass. And it's not necessarily in facial expressions. The more I've photographed animals, the more I've realized that emotion can be seen in many different places. Emotion can be seen when the eyes are closed. Emotion can be seen in the touch or the embrace. Emotion can be seen when a child leans against her mother in body language. Sometimes emotion is in gestures of the arms and the legs. And sometimes it's when the subject looks deep into the camera. So I wanted to get back out there and photograph more wildlife, and I wanted to get back underwater. So my next trip, I was really excited. About a year and a half ago, I wanted to go out and photograph the whale sharks. This time, I took my 750, my 20 millimeter lens, and I bought a housing for it, and I went out to Indonesia. Now, I love whale sharks. They're the most beautiful animals. They have all these crazy, amazing patterns. The geometry nerd in me got so excited. I could take tens of thousands of images with the dual card slot that I could put 128 gig cards in. I could photograph these patterns for days, the beautiful spots on the backs, the spots going into the lines. When I started to look at this, I started to realize that these geometric patterns were mixing, and that made me really excited. So the craziest thing happened. When I stopped diving and I started snorkeling with these animals, I noticed this amazing diffraction happening around my body. Do you guys know what diffraction is? It's when an obstacle causes light to bend. And when I looked down into the forever below me, I saw these crazy, amazing lines that were caused with my body in the direct center of them. I had a total Harry Potter moment at first, and I put my arms out and moved my fingers, and I felt like I was magical. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever, right? So I realized, I'm like, I want these patterns to mix. I want the lines from the ocean and from my body to mix with the spots of the whale sharks. So I realized the more I swam, the more I could put the lines exactly where I wanted. So I swam, and I swam, and I swam, right? Not noticing it, I actually swam into a school of jellyfish while I wasn't wearing a wetsuit because I wanted to enjoy the temperate waters on an island that did not have medical facilities, a pharmacy, or medicine. I went back that night. I was the only one staying there to my hut, and I asked the guys that worked there, I was like, hey, do you guys have any medication for me? Because I was rashed from head to toe. They were like, we have lemonade. I'm like, okay. I go to dinner that night. There's a lemon on the counter with a glass of water. Great. But it was all worth it in the end because I got what I wanted. I got this geometric pattern mixing of the spots and the stripes meeting each other, and I was so excited. To me, it showed how beautiful that animal was. It showed what I felt. It showed the simplicity. It showed exactly what I wanted to show. I entered this image in the Nature's Best Photography competition, and I got a high honor, and I ended up getting it up in the Smithsonian. It's up in the National Museum of Natural History. So if you guys are there in DC before September, make sure you go up and check out the exhibit. I'm pretty proud that it's on display for a lot of people to see. I wanted to get out and photograph more wildlife. This time I wanted to get out and photograph bears. The mama bear is so beautiful with the way she protects her cubs, and the dada bear is like so on his own and does his own thing, and I was really excited. So I got these tickets to go up to Brooks Camp and photograph bears. I've just recently gotten this new lens, 200 to 500 f5.6, which I love, because this lens, it's super lightweight, it's easy to carry. It's not something that you need a porter or somebody with you to carry your gear. And this, with my D5, I can shoot at ISO 5000, so it's not a big deal that it's a 5.6 to me, right? So I love this. I love this camera, and I love this system. And I took it out to photograph the bears at Brooks Falls. I show up, and I go to this balcony. They have this platform you can photograph the bears on. I'm standing there on the safety of the platform. And I met this guy who's like, why don't you come out to the water with me and get a better angle? I'm like, yes, I'm going to do that. So I decided I was going to go wading in the water in the Brooks River to get close to the bears, right? The fishermen are all in the water. The bears aren't bothering the fishermen. It's no big deal, right? So I thought that it would be totally a good idea. I get out there, and the second we walked down into the river, I looked to the side, and this bear had come down on the path, so we couldn't go back to the lodge. I look over this way, and a mama bear could start coming down the river with her 2 cubs. Don't want to go that way. I look down that way, and I see this bear in the distance. Now, it's the beginning of the salmon season, so they're hungry. They've just come out of hibernation. And I take this camera and this lens, and I zoom right in on him. He's not paying any attention at all. But the second he looks over at me, he starts to stare. I'm looking fully extended at my 500 right out at that bear, and he locks eyes, and he starts to run, and he starts to sprint. I literally thought this was going to be the last photo I would ever take in my life. I did what was the hardest thing I have ever done. Stay calm, no eye contact, don't just run. And I remember looking away and walking slowly. Hey bear, I'm friendly, don't kill me, I'm friendly. Walked slowly up the one bank that I knew was bearless, even though it had a tall grass and I wasn't sure if one was hiding. You don't want to startle a bear. Bears, for the most part, they're friendly animals. This guy, I think, was just hungry, and he wanted me out of his fishing territory. So he came over, and he came right next to me and splashed for a little while. He wanted to scare me, and when you're 400 pounds and can run 35 miles per hour, you're going to be quite scary. My poor parents, they didn't talk to me for a solid month after I posted this image on Facebook. But I've learned my lesson. Next time I will have a guide, I will have bear spray, and I will not get charged by a bear ever again in my life. I went into the lodge where my friend was sitting, and when I went into the lodge, she just looks at my face and she goes, what happened to you? And I'm like, you don't want to know. She's like, gotta take a photo of your face right now. So that was my face going into the Brooks River, and that was my face when I got out of the Brooks River. I went back to the safety of the platforms the next day, where I belonged most of the time, and I did get this shot. And I love this shot because it shows that strength and that power as he stands there still looking for his salmon, right? Put that guy down. So recently, I got myself a new camera. I got myself D850. This camera, people say it over and over again. It is a game changer, and I'm so excited that I now have this camera. I got to go out and photograph lions recently in Kenya. And the most amazing thing happened when I took these files and downloaded them. I zoomed in, and I could see the lion's iris from the shot I took of him in the wild. I've never seen a lion's iris before. The gear is getting so much lighter, it's getting so much better every year, and it's making the ability to photograph and grab our passions so much easier. This 850 it's smaller than my D5, and it shoots medium format size files. Definitely fits back in the seat back in front of me, and it's something that I can take everywhere, right? These cameras are making it so much easier for us to grab and keep what we're passionate about. I love seeing Scott. Did any of you guys see Scott Kelly's presentation earlier? He showed us what the sunrise looked like over the Earth from space with a D4. And it was stunning, right? I loved seeing Tamara Lackey's performance on the first day where she talked about orphanages in Ethiopia. That's something she's super passionate about. Mike Corrado spoke at the end of the first day on the children he's photographed at the Ronald McDonald House. I love seeing their stories and seeing their strength through his imagery. He's been doing that project for a really long time. As these cameras get better and better, the ability to grab and keep what we love is getting easier and easier. What moments do you want to keep? Maybe it's a high moment in your life, or you reach the top of a mountain or achieve a goal. This was me rock climbing and one of my favorite images of myself. Maybe it's a photo of somebody you love. This is my grandfather, the one that left me his camera. And this is what he loved. He loved the ocean. He loved to travel. And I love that I have this photograph of him from the things that he cared about. I had no idea that the gift he gave me was a gift that I could forever keep and show people what I love. I was this little nerdy introverted kid, and now I have this tool to show images that can be seen by millions of people. How cool is that? You can show people the beauty you see in them. You can show people the beauty you see in other things. You can show people the stories you're passionate about. The stories of the kids at the Ronald McDonald House, the stories from space. Having a camera is the biggest tool to be able to share love and share passion and share those things that you want to keep forever. My biggest passion is my nature work. So I'm going to show you guys some of that. Photography has gone so far since I started shooting with this guy. Have you guys seen the rest of the programs? I've absolutely loved seeing everybody and their passions and the talent that's up here on this stage. All the programs you can keep streaming for the next couple months on the website. But I love hearing stories, and I love seeing what people love, and I love seeing what people are passionate about. What's going to be the next image that you guys go out there and shoot that you will love? I can't wait to see it. We actually have some time for some question and answers. So if you guys have anything you would like to ask, let me know. Raise your hand. Yes?
Why you show some of the image in black and white?
Okay, great.
Black and white and silhouette.
No, that's a great question. Gentleman up front asked about why I show so many images in black and white. I absolutely love black and white because I sometimes feel when you take away color, you take away a lot of distraction, and it really gets you into the emotion in the moment. So I find color sometimes to be a distraction. But I do love color imagery. I just really prefer to kind of strip it away and simplify the images as much as possible to just show as much emotion as I can. So that's why I do love black and white. Any other questions do we have out here? Yes? Yes, of course. The silhouette with the cheetahs and the wildebeest. I remember when we were in safari in Kenya, I was really excited to take in landscape. Darren, who's my better half and my partner and everything, is really drawn by landscape and incorporating landscape into imagery so that you can kind of see a little bit more of the picture. So I remember when we saw the cheetahs start to hunt, we were looking into the distance, and the driver wanted to drive us up as close as possible. And I'm like, no, keep us back, because I really loved seeing it and seeing the situation unfold. And these wildebeest were right on the horizon, middle of the day, so it was really nice to be able to silhouette straight from behind and just watch the shapes of those animals all kind of come together in a hunt that they were ultimately unsuccessful on. But I loved that. I loved being able to show the shapes and the scene, and so that's why I chose to stand back and keep our vehicle back and silhouette that shot. Anybody else have any other questions? I want to thank you guys for your time. Time's very valuable, and the fact that you guys have sat here and listened to me is a gift, and I really appreciate it. I will be over here if you have any questions. Thank you, and thank Nikon.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kristi Odom. Stick around. We've got more incredible education and inspiration here. Nicole Holmes, Nikon ambassador from Mexico. The sky is not